The stories we hold in our head defines our future. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Create with Claire. And today we're talking about the stories we hold that creates our future. Now, when things happen in our life, we tend to create a story around it. It's normal, it's natural. We have been doing it all our lives. My question to you is this: is your story helping you, or is your story hindering you? Let's give a quick example. Let's go to a story to give you an idea. And we'll go to the one extreme. And there once was a pregnant woman who was the wife of an officer who had gone to fight in the war. She was late in her pregnancy, and one day she was standing upstairs and looked out the mirror when she heard two people knocking at the door. She looked down and she saw two officers standing at her door. She rushed down the stairs. She almost fell down the stairs. She opened the door. She could hardly breathe. And she said, "Is he? Is he?" And they nodded and said, "Yes." And her whole life fell into despair. Now, 2 weeks go by. She hasn't eaten. She's just moping around. Things are terrible. And they come back and they say to her, "Ma'am, we made a mistake. Your husband is indeed alive. He was wounded, however, and taken to a hospital. But he is fine and he'll be home in 2 weeks' time." So she went from great despair and sorrow to absolute elation and happiness and excitement. Now, let's quickly go into her brain. Where was she in this story? The story in her brain was she had lost her best friend, her husband. She was pregnant. She was probably worried about the child, yet her husband was alive all the time. But for those 2 weeks, she lived in absolute despair. And then suddenly very happy, obviously, when the news came around. Now, things happen in our life. Some bad things happen in our life. Here's my question to you. What stories do you tell yourself when bad things happen? Why is it that one person bounces back from a tragedy quickly and another can live his or her whole life in despair? What is the difference between the two people? And what is the psychology behind this? Now, I want you to think about this. Let's say one person gets fired from a job and another also gets fired from the job. The one bounces back and becomes a multimillionaire, and the one becomes homeless. So I hope you're starting to see a trend here. It all comes down to our thoughts and the stories we tell ourselves. Let's look at the stories and the thoughts of the homeless guy. The homeless guy immediately said, "I'm not good enough. I am going to lose my family," which he did. "I'm going to lose my home, going to lose all my possessions. I am not worth being in society. I'm hopeless. Life is terrible." The other guy, who made millions from the same experience, had a different thought pattern. Might have had a few moments of, "This is terrible," but it is. But bounced back in saying, instead of saying, "I'm this and I'm terrible and I'm not good enough and I did a bad job and if only," he did the opposite and said, "I can make this work. I found the gift that taught me a lesson." He did do something wrong at work and got fired, but he took it in his stride, learned from it, and then started at the bottom and started to climb his way back up again. So are you somebody who learns from your lessons, or are you somebody who lives in despair? That's a very fine line. And we often don't see it within ourselves when we are actually experience deep emotional things that are unsatisfactory in our life. Maybe a person broke up with you, or you got a divorce. What are the inner things that you tell yourself? What's going on up here? Versus the other person that says, I've got some work to do here and I'm going to sort me out. And then ends up with a fantastic relationship because of the work and the lessons they've learned. So my question to you is, from today, what steps and actions are you going to take to make sure that you turn to the right direction and become a success because of the failures that were actually gifts to help us achieve and become more? I hope this little one spoke to you and that you can actually find something from it. Now, here's a little exercise. Go back into your life, find an event that was not pleasing, and think of how you handled it. What were the thoughts in your head? How did you move through it? Now, what I want you to do is rewrite that same script and say, knowing what you know now, if you did it differently and you could have chosen a different path, how much sooner would you have bounced back? And how much would you have grown? And how much more of a success would you have been? It makes us think of the things that happen in life slightly differently when they do occur. And it gives us a little bit more knowledge to really think about the things we're thinking. Because what happens is, in a time of strain, we usually let our minds go wild and take us in a direction instead of us taking control of our minds and following in the direction we wanted to go. Write some comments. Tell me where in your life you have had one or two of these things happen to you. Or perhaps where it happened and you did go into the wrong side and later on in life you had learned this lesson and therefore had succeeded because of it. I'd love to hear. Like, click, subscribe to our channel, and you get more of this. Have a good day.